What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. With Pokemon Stadium coming to Nintendo Switch Online, I thought I'd make a tier list of the best Pokemon to use in your playthrough. Since these Pokemon have predetermined moves and are rental Pokemon, you can't really customize anything. So I went through all of them and I decided, which ones are the best for you to use. So let's jump right in. Alright, starting off with Venusaur. Venusaur is a solid grass type, and it's got decent moves here with Leech Seed and Sleep Powder. Sleep Powder just disables Pokemon, and with Leech Seed you can kind of just recover over time while they're sleeping, or you can spam Growth to set up for powerful Solar Beams. So that alone puts it in the A tier for me. Super solid grass type Pokemon. Alright. Moving on to Charizard next on the tier list here. Charizard is solid with Fire Blast, and Fire Spin actually disables Pokemon from moving entirely. It's super nice for you to set up Swords Dance, and then you can hit Pokemon with Fly. So that alone is enough to put also Charizard in the A tier for me. Next up, we got the final evolution for the last starter of the trio. We got Blastoise with its signature move in Skull Bash. Unfortunately, this is Gen 1 Skull Bash where it doesn't give you the defense boost when you charge up the Skull Bash, so it's just a regular normal type move that just charges up and wastes a turn. Unfortunately, it's not very good in this game with Tail Whip and Withdraw as well, so Hydro Pump can miss. There are better water type Pokemon in the game. So unfortunately, Blastoise is not going to be joining its other partners in the A tier. It's going to be in the B tier. All right. Next up on the list, we got Butterfree. Butterfree is a solid special attacker, but unfortunately for Butterfree, there are Pokemon that can do what it wants to do better. So it doesn't even have any like bug or flying stab moves. It's got Stun Spore, which can, really be annoying to the enemy by paralyzing them. But Psychic Mega Drain, really not the best moves. So Butterfree is going to go into the C tier. All right. Next up on the list, we got Beedrill. Beedrill is the best bug type in the game, unironically. It's got the best bug move in the game, Twin Needle. It's got Focus Energy just to really amplify the critical hits, and with a multi-hitting move, you got more chances to get those critical hits. So Hyper Beam is incredible for breaking through walls from a solid 217 attack. Mega Drain could be, there could be a better move there, but yeah, Beedrill's super solid bug type. It's really good into psychic types that are really strong in the game, and it can really just take them out with Twin Needle, so that puts it in the A tier for me. Next up on the list, we've got Pidgeot. Pidgeot has some pretty solid moves, but unfortunately for it, there are better flying types in the game, right? Fly is a 2-turn move, you waste some turns there. Quick Attack is not the best normal type move. Sand Attack is just awful to have on a Pokemon, unironically. And Mirror Move is a cool move that you can use to kind of bail you out of situations, but unfortunately it's not the best flying type in the game. Typing alone is good to put Pidgeot in the B tier, but unfortunately it doesn't have the best moves. Next up, we have Raticate, and boy, am I excited for this little rat. It's got an amazing stab move in Hyper Fang. Hyper Fang has a 10% chance to flinch, which is not the best, but it's still the chance to flinch. And then Hyper Fang cuts HP in half, which is really good for wall breaking. And then you can toxic things like Chansey or Snorlax that are really just sitting on the field over time, and let that poison just build up. It's got an amazing priority move that's also stab with quick attack, and it's got a solid speed stat in 97. So Raticate, unironically, is one of the better normal types in the game, and that alone puts it in the A tier. Next up, we've got the best flying type in the game. This is based off of its moves, right? It's got amazing stab in Drill Peck and Hyper Beam. Growl is not the best move, but it can come clutch, to lower the attack of some Pokemon. And then Mirror Move is amazing coverage, right? If you use it correctly, you can really pull some wins with it. So Fearow, the best flying type, goes into the A tier. Coming in next is Arbok. Arbok is just simply outshone by its other poison brothers, and it's got an awful move pool. Glare is not 100% accurate, and Thunder Wave can paralyze ground types, so it loses its niche for Glare. Unfortunately, Arbok is not really good. It's going to go into the C tier. Next up on the list, we've got the mascot of the franchise itself, Pikachu, right? Pikachu's got some solid support moves with Reflect and Thunder Wave. Unfortunately, the coverage on it is not the best. Swift is not a really good move to have on it. It's a little bit of a shame that Pikachu didn't get the mascot treatment here. It didn't get Surf or Fly or any of the moves that it got in Yellow, so that unfortunately it makes Pikachu really bad. Pikachu is going to join its partner Butterfree in the C tier. Coming in next is Raichu. Raichu's got better stats than its little brother Pikachu. It's got Mega Kick, and it's got a priority move in Quick Attack and Thunder Wave as well, being able to paralyze even ground types with 100% accuracy. This is before it was nerfed into Gen 6. So Raichu is going to slot in right above Pikachu at the B tier. Okay. Next, we have Sandslash. Sandslash has lackluster moves, doesn't even have Earthquake, and no coverage whatsoever. Sandslash slots into the C tier with the other mouse Pokemon. Next, we have Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen is an amazing ground poison type with a really good coverage and moves. Rock Slide and Double Kick give it great coverage, and Toxic is amazing for breaking walls. So that alone is enough to put Nidoqueen in the A tier, one of the best ground types in the game. Coming up next, we have Nidoking. Nidoking has awful moves compared to Nidoqueen. Horn Drill is a nice one-hit KO move, but the accuracy is really, really low. Bide is such an awful move on such poor defensive typing, honestly. It just gets one-shot by all the other Psychic types and Water types that are so predominant in the game. It's still got solid attack, and it does have Earthquake. So because of that, that is going to put Nidoking into the B tier, right below Nidoqueen, actually. Up next, we have Clefable. Clefable's got really good support in Thunder Wave, and Metronome can bail you out of bad situations. Thunder is really good for hitting opposing flying and water types, and Strength is a solid stab move. Remember, Clefable is a normal type in this game. That slots Clefable into the B tier. Next up is Ninetales. Ninetales has Fire Blast as its stab move, but the coverage on the other moves is not the best. Tail Whip and Confuse Ray are questionable moves, and Quick Attack, while it is good priority, doesn't really take use of the really good special that Ninetales has. That puts Ninetales into the B tier. There are better fire types in the game, unfortunately, for Ninetales with better moves at that. Next, we have Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff has really good support moves in Sing and Disable, and really good stabs in Strength and Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam is that one-shot option if you want it, or opt into that. You are going to have to recharge after it, but Strength is solid damage output without having to use that recharge move. So, Sing and Disable, incredibly strong, and you just got to watch out for those accuracies on those moves. That is enough to put Clefable into the B tier. Next, we have Golbat. Golbat is really, really bad. And what is his sprite doing? He's covering his mouth. Haze and Mega Drain are really awful. Supersonic misses a lot. Hyper Beam is not even stab. It is really, really fast, but I mean, you could find a niche for fast Haze to get rid of boosts on opposing Pokemon, right? Like Minimize can be annoying, or Swords Dances, or maybe even Amnesia from opposing special attackers, right? But it's just got nothing going for it. Its special is not the best. I don't know why it has Mega Drain, and this is one of those Pokemon that just doesn't really have the best moves. It could have done so much better with better moves, right? Unfortunately, Golbat is going to go into the C tier. It's borderline unusable, honestly. There are better Haze users as well. Next up, we have one of my favorite grass types in the game. It is Vileplume. Vileplume's got solid stab moves with Mega Drain for healing back up, and Solar Beam if you do feel like you have the room to charge up the Solar Beam for one turn. Stun Spore is really, really good for paralyzing and immobilizing the enemy, and Acid actually stacks in lowering defenses, so you can spam it. Totally not biased. That puts Vileplume high B tier. Coming up next is Parasect. Parasect has the best grass type move in the game, Spore, 100% accurate sleep move. And you do have recovery with Mega Drain. You can growth and boost your special attack. And Slash is incredible for wall breaking stuff like Chansey. Unfortunately, Parasect is not the fastest, and it doesn't have the best types, so that puts it in the A tier. Spore is really just carrying this Pokemon. Next up, we have another bug poison type with Venomoth. Venomoth has a really good special attack and a really good speed. Psychic and Mega Drain are solid move coverage, and Sleep Powder is amazing, of course, disabling the enemy for an indefinite amount of turns because sleep is broken in this game. Flash is solid. You can be really annoying with Flash and Sleep Powder. So that combination of move is enough to carry Venomoth into the B tier. Solid stats and a really good move pool. Coming up next is Dugtrio. Someone at Game Freak really hates Dugtrio, man, because they did him dirty. They didn't even give him Earthquake. They gave him the worst Earthquake, which is Dig, which basically takes 2 turns to charge. Rock Slide doesn't even flinch, so it doesn't matter that it's really fast Rock Slide. Sand Attack and Growl are completely useless and awful. So that puts Dugtrio in the C tier. It's just one of those other Pokemon that, unfortunately, the moves that it has are just really not doing anything for it. Coming in next and looking very relaxed is Persian. Persian is a Pokemon with some pretty decent moves. You do have the combination of Screech and Hyper Beam, which can really just break through walls and KO lots of Pokemon with it. You have nice coverage with Thunder, even though your special is not the best. It is pretty solid. So you do have good coverage, and then Bite is also a normal type move in this game. That puts Persian in the B tier. Next, we have the Kappa Pokemon, Golduck. Golduck has amazing coverage in Bubble Beam, Ice Beam, and Confusion. Obviously, Bubble Beam could be a better water move in Surf, but it is what it is, and Disable is... Golduck is basically a fast Disable user, right? So if you get hit by something, you can Disable it next turn, usually outspeeding. So that alone puts Golduck into the A tier. Next on the list is Primeape, and he's ready to go. Primeape has some pretty good coverage in Thrash and Seismic Toss, and let me explain. Seismic Toss can actually hit ghost types in this game. I don't know if that's a coding error or if that's intended, but it is not walled by ghost types. So you do have that option for Seismic Toss for doing solid damage, even into special attackers. And Thrash is just solid coverage. Low kick can flinch in this game. It doesn't do damage based on weight, so keep that in mind. And Counter is really useful and can be really clutch if you know how to use it and can, you know, just really calculate the damage that's going to come towards you and make sure that you don't faint. Definitely one of the better fighting types in the game. Primeape does go into the A tier. Next up, we have Arcanine, and Arcanine, unfortunately, is also one of the Pokemon that got screwed over by bad moves. Agility and Leer don't do much for it. Agility boosts its speed, but it's already a pretty fast Pokemon. Dig is one of the worst ground-type moves in the game. You could argue that Earthquake is infinitely better. And Fire Blast, however, it is a good fire move, but it can miss. It doesn't have that consistency that Flamethrower has. That's going to put Arcanine into the B tier. Next up, we have a non-fully evolved Pokemon, and probably our first one in the series, but it's got an amazing move pool. Amnesia is basically Calm Mind in this game, boosting your special defense and special attack, and you also have really good coverage with Surf, Ice Beam, and Psychic. You have the best Ice move in Ice Beam, best Water move in Surf, and the best move in the Psychic typing with Psychic, so it's just incredible that it got so many good moves, and I believe Poliwhirl is one of the favorite Pokemon of one of the developers or one of the creators of Pokemon, so it's clearly showing they gave it the better moves. This Pokemon is carried by its move pool, and it slots it into the A tier easily. Next on the list, we've got the water fighting type Poliwrath. Poliwrath is actually pretty solid as well. It is a really good mixed attacker with one of the best fighting moves in the game with Submission, and then Bubble Beam, Hypnosis, and Amnesia. Amnesia can boost the damage output for Bubble Beam and also raise your special defense. You don't take as much damage from special. Hypnosis is amazing, again, for disabling Pokemon from the enemy side. This also puts Poliwrath into the A tier with Poliwhirl. They're pretty good water types. Water types are in general really good in this game and in this generation. Next on the list, we've got Kadabra. Kadabra is also a non-fully evolved Pokemon that I do recommend you use. It's got really good moves in Psychic and Recover. Reflect can really just make it so that your defenses are a little bit higher, and Dig, while not the best move, it is solid coverage. Believe it or not, I actually think that Kadabra is better than Alakazam in this game, solely based off of the move pool, and the stat difference isn't really that much. That puts Kadabra into the A tier. Following up Kadabra is Alakazam. Alakazam doesn't even have Psychic, it has Psybeam. It also has Reflect like Kadabra, but the coverage on it is significantly worse. It's got Hyper Beam for some reason, and Kinesis is basically just double teamed Psychic type. So this Pokemon is still insanely fast and still hits really hard with Stab Psybeam. That enough is to put it into the A tier as well with Kadabra, but I would say Kadabra is a lot better. Next up is Machoke, another fighting type that has access to Seismic Toss, which means it doesn't get walled by ghost types, aka Gengar, which is the only ghost type in the game, and also Haunter. I think Haunter is pretty viable. But Machoke also has Focus Energy, which can boost the damage output for Submission and Dig. And Dig, well, again, not the best. I just really hate Dig, by the way. Not the best ground type move. It is still pretty solid coverage. Having Submission, the best fighting type move in the game, or one of the best fighting type moves in the game, puts Machoke into the A tier. Next up is Machamp, the evolution for Machoke, and unfortunately this Pokemon got screwed over by moves again. This Pokemon has a worse fighting type move than Machoke in Low Kick. Low Kick does not do damage based off of weight, so it does have the capability of flinching, however it's not the best damage output. The coverage in Mega Punch and Leer Focus Energy really doesn't do anything for it, as it does get walled by ghost types, or just Haunter and Gengar again. But Focus Energy is pretty nice for, you know, those crits and can bail you out, but it doesn't have the consistency that Submission has, or even Seismic Toss on Machoke. Unfortunately, the stat difference between Machoke and Machamp is not enough to carry the awful move pool for Machamp, and that puts it into the B tier below Machoke. Alright, next we have the Flytrap Victreebel. Victreebel's got really good stabs in Razor Leaf and Acid. Remember, we don't still have the physical special split in this game, not until Gen 4, I believe, but Acid does lower defenses and you can stack it. Sleep Powder can disable Pokemon, and you can also disable them with Wrap. Wrap in this game is incredibly obnoxious and prevents Pokemon from moving altogether. Razor Leaf, good stab, and it's got solid attack and special. Unfortunately, it's not enough to carry Victreebel to a higher tier. It does put it into the C tier. There are just better grass types in the game. Next, we have Tentacruel, another Pokemon that has really bad moves. The combination of Screech and Wrap is really bizarre. Wrap is not a really high base power move. And however, you can do some pretty cool stuff with Toxic and Wrap. And this Pokemon does have decent speed and special, so that alone is enough to carry it a little bit higher than it should be. It should be a lot lower. If it weren't for solid speed and stats like special, this Pokemon would be a lot lower, but it is enough to put it into the B tier. Next up is Graveler, the ground and rock type. It's got amazing coverage and Earthquake, thank you for no dig, and it's got Rock Slide as well. Remember, Rock Slide cannot flinch, so don't cross your fingers or hope for that to happen. And Metronome is an incredible wild card move that can really just bail you out. Fire Blast, it's not the best, and it doesn't have the best special, but it can do some solid damage to some grass types. There are better ground types in the game, so that alone puts Graveler into the B tier. Next up, we have Golem. Just really don't use this Pokemon, man. They gave it Rock Throw and Dig. They did Golem so dirty. It has Defense Curl for some reason. I think they're going for like thematic, like matching moves or something. And it also has Fire Blast for some reason. I don't quite understand this one. Yeah, Golem is really bad. It's probably one of the worst Pokemon in the game. It goes into the C tier for me. Next up is the Fire Horse Rapidash, and Rapidash has a pretty cool niche for it. It's 105 base speed, and it has Stomp, which can flinch 33% of the time. It also has a really solid move in Fire Blast and supporting moves in Reflect. Tail Whip is not the best, but it can boost the damage for Stomp. That puts Rapidash into the B tier with Arcanine as well. Coming up next is Slowbro, the Water Psychic type. It's got the best water move in Surf and the best Psychic type move in Psychic. It's also got a really good support move in Disable, and Slow Disable means that you disable the move that same turn, so if you can predict that they're going to go for a really good move and disable it, it can come in really clutch. Mega Punch is not the best, but it can help it against things like Chansey. That puts Slowbro into the B tier for bro. Alright. Following up Slowbro, we've got Magneton, and Magneton is an electric type. Don't forget, it's not steel type in this game. It's got Thunder and Thunder Wave, the support move, and then it also has Supersonic, which can miss a lot, but it can be incredibly obnoxious with the combination of Thunder Wave and Supersonic, as well as Flash. You can lower accuracy, make sure that they don't move or that they hit themselves in confusion all in one. It's incredibly obnoxious. It does get walled by ground types, so just keep that in mind. And there are better electric types with better coverage. But given how obnoxious it can be, it is enough to put it into the B tier. All right. Next up, we've got Farfetch'd, the duck Pokemon, and somebody really likes Farfetch'd at Game Freak because they give it a nasty combination. It's got the combination of Toxic and Sand Attack and Fly as well, so you can really Toxic stall stuff. You've also got Slash to critically strike based off of your decent speed. The nasty combination of Toxic and Sand Attack is enough to put Farfetch'd into the A tier. It just can really snowball out of control. Next is Dodrio, and it took a break from terrorizing everyone in Unite, but it's got one of the better normal type moves in Tri-Attack. Remember, Tri-Attack doesn't have any bonus effects in this game. You can't paralyze or freeze or burn, and it would be the best flying type in the game if it had access to Drill Peck. Unfortunately, they gave it Fly instead, and you really don't need agility to boost your speed. You're pretty fast already, and Growl is just questionable, man. Unfortunately, they did Dodrio dirty. If Dodrio had access to Drill Peck, it would easily be the best flying type in the game and would go into the A tier, but unfortunately it doesn't have that move, so it's going to go into the B tier. Next up, we have Dugong. Dugong is just straight up awful. It's got really bad move coverage, and there are just better water and ice type Pokemon in the game. You probably know which one I'm talking about, but Dugong is going to slot into the C tier. Really, really bad Pokemon, unfortunately. Next up, we have Dat Boy Muck. Oh man, am I excited for Muck. Muck is the best poison type in the game. It's got the best poison move in Sludge. Sludge Bomb is still not a thing. And it can be incredibly obnoxious into physical attackers with Acid Armor, and it can lower the physical defense opposing Pokemon with Screech, and Sludge can 50% chance to poison is incredible on Muck. That is enough to put Muck into the A tier. Best poison type in the game by far. Next, we've got Cloyster, the water ice type Pokemon, and unfortunately, it's not very good. It's got an awful speed stat and special, and it just gets destroyed by electric types. It does have really high defense, which can wall physical attackers, but it just gets completely destroyed by electric types since they really have high speed and high special. The moves in Ice Beam, Bubble Beam, Clamp, and Supersonic, it's got good coverage with those two ice and water moves, but Clamp is really, really bad, and Supersonic just misses too much and is too inconsistent. C is for Cloyster, so therefore it goes into the C tier. Alright. Another not fully evolved Pokemon in Haunter. Haunter has the combination of Hypnosis and Dream Eater, which based off of its really good speed and special can really take advantage of it. Unfortunately, Ghost is a physical type, so it really doesn't take advantage of the really high special that Haunter and Gengar have. Doesn't really have any Ghost or Poison moves, therefore. And Confuse Ray is solid. It's better than Supersonic, so I will say that. That puts Haunter into the B tier. Next up, we have Gengar. Gengar also has the Hypnosis Dream Eater combination, and unfortunately, it has to hit Hypnosis to do damage. If it doesn't hit Hypnosis, it can't use Dream Eater, and that's really, really bad. Nightshade is not really taking advantage of Gengar's amazing special. They really screwed Gengar over. Metronome is a really cool wildcard move that can bail you out, but it can also screw you over, so be careful when using it. Unfortunately, due to bad moves, Gengar goes below Haunter. It actually goes into the C tier. Alright, next up we've got Onix, the actual worst Pokemon in the game. Seriously, I'm not even kidding. This Pokemon has a worse attack stat than Kabuto. It does have really good moves in Rock Slide and Earthquake, but unfortunately, it doesn't have the stats to take advantage of it. It also has Fissure for those weird instances where you are really just done and you might win the game off of a Fissure hitting, but it's also got Self-Destruct, which can blow itself up, but again, its attack is so low that it really doesn't matter. Yeah, Onix just should not be in the game, to be honest. I'm just gonna say it. It's so bad. The stat distribution for this Pokemon is awful. Don't use it, or just, it would be C tier, but next we have one of the many Psychic types in the game. We've also got Hypno. Hypno really doesn't do anything different than Kadabra or Alakazam. It does have Hypnosis, but it really doesn't have the good stats that Kadabra and Alakazam do have. It's got Poison Gas and Headbutt as its coverage moves, and could honestly be so much better. Hypno is going to go into the C tier. Following up Hypno is Kingler. Kingler is a solid water type with a pretty solid defense stat as well. It's got Crab Hammer and Strength for coverage. Guillotine is a really good one-hit KO move in case things get a little dicey. You can also Toxic Stall physical attackers like Snorlax with your really high defense. So Kingler is going to go into the B tier for me. Next on the list is Electrode, a speedy electric type with Thunder and Swift for coverage. Swift is not the best coverage move. You can be pretty obnoxious with Thunder Wave and Flash, but in the wrong matchups, you're just really useless into things like ground types in general, or even things like Rhydon, right? Rhydon is gonna resist that Swift and is immune to Thunder, just completely gets walled. Fortunately for Electrode, it's got a pretty good speed stat, and that's enough to put it into the B tier, despite its awful move pool. Next up is Exeggutor, and man, do I love this Pokemon. It's literally the best grass type in the game. You've got amazing moves in Sleep Powder and Psychic. Solar Beam, while not the best grass type move, it is pretty solid. Unfortunately, you do have to charge it up, and you also have Stomp for some cheesy flinches. The best grass type goes into the A tier. Next up is Cubone's mother, it's Marowak, and Marowak unfortunately also has really bad moves. It has Bone Club, Focus Energy, Headbutt, and Thrash. It's got solid coverage, but two normal type moves really just, you couldn't give it a rock type move really. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Marowak goes into the C tier. There's just infinitely better ground types in the game. Next, we have the kicking Pokemon Hitmonlee, and man, am I excited for this Pokemon. This is the best fighting type in the game, undisputed. It's got Focus Energy to amplify its damage even higher. It's got really good speed, and High Jump Kick is the best fighting type move in the game. You also have flinch capabilities with Rolling Kick, and Jump Kick is just more consistent. It misses a little bit less. We have our first S tier Pokemon in the game, and it's going to be Hitmonlee. It's just incredible with really high attack and incredible damage output. Oh man, I don't know if I should laugh or cry, man. Hitmonchan got done dirty. It doesn't have Stab. It has the Elemental Punches, but these are special moves which come out of its really bad special attack stat. It's just so sad to see, man. Hitmonchan is infinitely worse than Hitmonlee. This one also goes and should not be in the game with that atrocious moveset. Next up is Lickitung, and I am genuinely surprised by this Pokemon. I thought it would be so much worse, but it's got the infamous Bolt Beam combo in Blizzard and Thunder. You also have great coverage with Earthquake, the best ground type move in the game, and you have solid Stab with Body Slam and the chance to paralyze. This Pokemon is really just a jack of all trades, and it can wall break things like Chansey as well with Body Slam. Lickitung easily goes into the A tier for me. Pleasantly surprised by that one. Next up, it's not Muck, but it is another poison type Pokemon. Weezing is pretty solid. It's got the best poison move in the game, being able to poison 50% of the time. It's basically a coin flip. You got solid coverage with Thunder and solid special, and Haze being able to just clear up any stat boost from the opponent is really, really valuable. You could consider using it over Muck because of this. Weezing's going to be high B tier. It would be A tier, but that's Muck spot, basically. Another not fully evolved Pokemon in Rhyhorn. Rhyhorn is a Pokemon that just has an amazing move pool that just puts it above things like Marowak. Being able to have access to Earthquake and Rock Slide as solid stabs, and then Body Slam as well for the chance to paralyze. You've also got the Get Out of Jail card with Fissure in case things get a little dicey. Rhyhorn's gonna go into the B tier for me. Next up, we have the first Pokemon ever and one of my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon. It is Rhydon. Rhydon is amazing with access to Earthquake and an incredible attack stat. It's also got pretty solid coverage with Thunder. It's not the best special attacker, but it can really hit stuff on the special side, and it also has access to Fissure as a get out of jail free card. Rhydon with the most powerful move in the game in Earthquake and a really high attack stat just automatically puts it into the S tier for me. They actually did it. They gave Seismic Toss to Chansey. Chansey is an incredible special wall, and if your opponent has all special attackers, then you basically just win. With access to Rest to heal itself back up, and access to Seismic Toss as solid damage output, ignoring the fact that it has abysmal attack, just makes Chansey such a good Pokemon. You also have the wild card in Metronome, which can really turn the tide in battle. Another insanely strong Pokemon going into the S tier, it's Chansey. The final Grass-type Pokemon is going to be Tangela, and Tangela has no move coverage, unfortunately. It does have the combination of Growth and Mega Drain to kind of heal itself back up, and you can also Stun Spore and set up those growths, so that puts Tangela into the B tier above things like Victory Bell. Not the best Grass type, but not the worst, I will say. Next on the list, we've got the parent Pokemon Kangaskhan, and Kangaskhan has access to Fast Substitute, as well as Dizzy Punch and good coverage with Rock Slide and Surf. Dizzy Punch doesn't actually confuse in this game, so just keep that in mind, but it cannot miss, so we take those. Rock Slide doesn't flinch as well, and Surf, however, Kangaskhan doesn't have the best special attack, but it is good coverage. Just the fact that you have access to Fast Substitute is enough to put Kangaskhan into the A tier and solid damage output with Dizzy Punch. I feel like Game Freak gives Pokemon accuracy drops plus Toxic whenever they don't know what to do with the Pokemon. I'm talking about Seadra. They gave it Smokescreen and Toxic, and that's really obnoxious to go up against, and you got the best water type move in Surf. The nasty, obnoxious combination of Smokescreen and Toxic, as well as solid damage output, puts Seadra into the A tier. Seeking is just an awful water type, with its niche being access to Horn Drill. Horn Drill can just miss, but it can get you that one-hit knockout if that's what you're looking for. It's got awful moves in Fury Attack and Supersonic, and that puts Seeking into the C tier. I'm not gonna lie, Staryu impressed me. It's got solid speed and special to outspeed a lot of fully evolved Pokemon. It's got the best water and psychic moves, and it's got access to Recover. You also have Minimize to be incredibly obnoxious. If your opponent doesn't have Haze, they could just auto lose to not being able to hit you. Really good speed, really good damage output, good coverage, puts Staryu actually into the A tier. A good surprise. Next up, we have the evolution for Staryu, Starmie. If Starmie had access to Staryu's move pool, it would definitely be triple S tier, probably one of the best Pokemon in Generation 1. It's got solid coverage in Bubble Beam and Thunder. It doesn't have Surf for some reason. It also has Minimize and can be incredibly obnoxious, but the decision to put Swift on it is a little questionable. Again, if it had something like Ice Beam or better moves, it would definitely be the best Pokemon undisputed, but because of the move pool being so bad, it puts it into the A tier, slightly above Staryu because it is faster and hits harder. Mr. Mime is actually incredible in this game. It's got Barrier to boost defense sharply, and it's got Light Screen to mitigate special damage. It also has relatively solid stab and Psychic, and Hyper Beam is incredible for wall breaking things like Chansey. That puts Mr. Mime into the A tier, actually. One of the better Psychic types. Scyther has incredible speed and incredible attack, and it's got access to Double Team to be incredibly obnoxious. Also, the combination of Focus Energy and Hyper Beam can really just surprise knock out some Pokemon. Swift is consistent damage and can ignore things like Minimize on Staryu and Starmie, and that's pretty solid. Unfortunately, no stab moves, no solid bug moves for Scyther in its move pool at all, and it does have access to Wing Attack, but it's not a move that they elected to give to Scyther. Carried by good damage output and general decent move coverage, it's going to go into the A tier just solely off of really, really good high attacks. Jinx is also an incredibly broken and strong Pokemon with really good stab moves in Psychic and Ice Punch. You also have Lovely Kiss, which is essentially Sleep Powder. Even in the accuracy, it's the same. And wall breaking capabilities in Body Slam and being able to paralyze things. So Jinx is also going to be into the S tier for incredibly strong and broken Pokemon. The second best electric type in the game, Electabuzz, has really good support moves in Thunder Wave and Reflect. You also have the Wild Card in Metronome and solid damage output with Thunder Punch. You don't have to worry about missing Thunder or anything like that, so if you're looking for a solid, reliable electric type, Electabuzz is going to be your guy. Because of its consistency and really good support moves, it's going to go into the A tier. Magmar is also a very consistent special attacker that is a fire type. It's got consistent moves in Fire Punch and Psychic. You can, you know, get some hacks in with Confuse Ray and Mega Punch. Again, really good for wall breaking. One of the best fire types up there with Charizard himself, it is going to be Magmar in the A tier. Pinsir's a cool bug type Pokemon. Unfortunately, a lot of bug types suffer from the same problem that they don't have reliable stab, but it does have Seismic Toss, which is solid damage output against things that are really bulky, and you also have Toxic to really just stall them out. Unfortunately, Slash is its best damage output, and Guillotine is really cool for those one-hit knockouts if you do land it. Because of general good stats and solid move pool, it is going to go into the A tier. Tauros is a Pokemon that unfortunately doesn't have the best moves. It has Skull Bash. Again, I don't know why Game Freak even uses this move at all. Stomp is nice for getting those flinches, but there are faster things that can stomp, like Rapidash. We've talked about it, and actually Rapidash has Fire Blast as well, which is stab. So this is basically a different variation of Rapidash, I think. I don't know why they gave them the same moves. Unfortunately, Tauros doesn't have Hyper Beam or Takedown or any stronger normal type moves, so that alone puts it in the B tier. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm gonna let you look at the move pool. I'm gonna give you like 3 seconds. God, bad. Why? Just, yeah. Sorry. Solid defenses and good HP for Lapras and solid damage output, really good move coverage in water and ice, and having access to good crowd control with Sing. Lapras is just a really good Pokemon all around. If you need a bulky water type with good move coverage, I recommend Lapras. Lapras is going to go into the A tier. Next up is Ditto, the transforming Pokemon. If you can get Transform off, it has really good value, but unfortunately, it can get sniped by faster Pokemon, especially fighting types. Ditto is just one of those Pokemon that's really lacking Imposter, or its ability, so that puts it in the C tier, unfortunately. C tier, is it? Is it really? I mean, it could be B tier, right? It could be B tier, but I don't know. It's rough. It's rough. I'll bump it up to B tier. If you can get the Transform off, it can be huge, yeah. I think the Porygon is probably the best water type in the game, if I'm not mistaken. It also has an incredible move pool. It has Haze to remove, you know, buffs from the enemy, and then Acid Armor is really good into physical attackers. And Hydro Pump, while not the best move, it is the highest damage output for any water move. Quick Attack is also really good for sniping low health Pokemon. Yeah, it's an easy A tier for me. Right up there with Staryu and Starmie. Yeah, it's not the best water type, but it is one of the best. Next up, we have Jolteon. Jolteon's got reliable damage output in Thunder. Pin Missile and Quick Attack are not the best moves, but it is solid damage output. You also have Sand Attack, which is an unfortunate move that Jolteon has to carry. Being able to miss Thunder and not being as reliable as something like Electabuzz puts Jolteon into the B tier. Flareon's move pool leaves a lot to be desired. Quick Attack and Smog, as well as Sand Attack again, are not the best moves. Fire Blast is incredible damage output. It is the highest base power fire move in the game, but also can miss, so just be wary of that. If you're looking for a more reliable fire-type Pokemon, I recommend Magmar, but that puts Flareon into the B tier, right below Magmar. Porygon, unfortunately, leaves a lot to be desired. Its stab moves coming out of its attack stat, because all normal moves are physical in this game. Conversion is pretty cheesy. You can turn into the type of the enemy, which is really cool. You also have access to Recover. Tri-Attack has no side effects, and Psybeam can confuse, but it's not solid damage output, and it is pretty slow. Porygon, while one of my favorite Pokemon, it is going to go into the C tier. It's him. It's Lord Helix himself. Hydro Pump and Ice Beam, insane damage output. Toxic. He's just gonna Toxic stall you forever with its amazing stats. Body Slam, he's gonna get all the hacks all the time because he's Lord Helix. Lord Helix, God tier. Easy. Best Pokemon in the game. Don't at me. Next up, we have this imposter here, trying to be Lord Helix. Omastar. Honestly, and being serious, it's got really bad moves. It's got solid damage output in Surf, so if you want to use it for that, it's pretty fast too. And you can Toxic stall things, but I don't know, into normal types maybe. Spike Cannon is awful, and Horn Drill is just such a bad move. It just misses so much. You can't get those cheesy one-hit KOs. That puts Omastar into the C tier. Next, we have the other fossil Pokemon in Kabutops. Kabutops' typing is rather questionable, and it does have a really cool combination in Sword Stance and Mega Kick for breaking walls. You also have solid damage output with Hydro Pump and Ice Beam. However, your attack is a higher stat and your special is lackluster, so you mostly want to be using that Sword Stance Mega Kick combination. The combination of Sword Stance and Jump Kick is really, really cool, and it just does so much damage off of a really high attack stat already, so that puts Kabutops actually into the B tier. We're nearly done, guys, and next we have Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl has awful moves. I don't know why it doesn't even have a rock move. It's got Supersonic for some reason, and Fly isn't even its best flying move. I think you could argue Wing Attack is better, since if you hit 2 Wing Attacks, it's more damage than Fly. And Fire Blast is super questionable. Its special is really abysmal. If you look there, the special is 159. It is, however, one of the faster Pokemon in the game, so that alone puts it into the B tier, and Fly is a stab move and relatively solid damage output. Snorlax is one of the best Gen 1 Pokemon, undisputed. It's got incredible special defense and really, really high attack. It's super bulky in the HP as well, and defense is nothing to scoff at. It's got solid damage output in Takedown, it's got the wild card in Metronome, and you can also just rest up and heal all of your damage. If you are very smart, you can actually pull off Bide and just KO something that is unsuspecting, especially special attackers that try to, double down on those special moves. I think Snorlax is a Pokemon that gets carried incredibly hard by its stats and being just immune to a lot of, well, not immune, but it's just only got one weakness, right, in the fighting type. So I'm debating putting Snorlax S tier or high A tier. I think it deserves the S tier. It's just so good. So consistent is what it is. The first one of the legendary bird trio, it is Articuno. Articuno's got solid damage output with Ice Beam. Unfortunately, its flying type move is Sky Attack. It's got Mist, which you can use to kind of prevent stat drops, and Agility for some reason to boost your speed. That is already high, even higher. It is one of the faster ice types, and it's got solid damage output and good matchup into a lot of Pokemon. So I'm going to put Articuno into the A tier. Next we have Zapdos. Good old days from Pokemon Unite. Rotate to Zapdos at 2 minutes, please. Zapdos is probably the best, I'm going to say it. It is the best electric type Pokemon in the game. Is it the best electric type in Pokemon Stadium? I would say no. This is because it has Sky Attack instead of Drill Peck. You could argue Thunderbolt is more consistent than Thunder, and then for some reason it has Flash and Bide. I don't know, the move selection is rather questionable on Zapdos, unfortunately. It is still going to go into the A tier just because it's such a good Pokemon, but the move pool is really hindering it from going into the S tier. Moltres is the final Pokemon from the bird trio with the fire flying typing like Charizard. Fire Blast is, again, the highest damage output for fire type moves. Sky Attack's actually decent for it off of its pretty good attack stat. And then you have really good support moves in Reflect only, actually, and then Agility, again, for some reason, you just want to boost your speed even higher. I don't know. Moltres is just basically worse Charizard. Goes into the B tier for me. When I say I was pleasantly surprised by Dragonair, I actually mean it. It's got amazing coverage in Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Fire Blast. Those moves are really consistent, by the way. It's got the Bolt Beam combination, but the actual Thunderbolt and Ice Beam. And then you've got wall-breaking capabilities with Body Slam. Its stats are really good all around, basically, so don't be shy from using Dragonair over Dragonite. Dragonair is easily A tier. It's only weak to Dragon and Ice, and there are no Dragon-type moves. The only Dragon move in the game is Dragon Rage, and it does solid damage output, but it doesn't do super effective damage against dragons, so yeah, A tier easily. The last and final Pokemon, it's Dragonite. It is a community favorite, but unfortunately its moves are a little sus. It's got Thunder and Fire Blast, which are not very consistent like Dragonair. It also has Slam, which it's solid, but there are better moves for it out there. Wrap is also, you can do wrap things where they can't move, but I honestly prefer Dragonair a little bit over Dragonite, unfortunately, based off of the moves alone. Yeah, that's going to put Dragonite into the B tier, below Dragonair, actually. It's just, the move pool is so different. Wait, what? I forgot one Pokemon. Oh, Magikarp. Easy God tier. our gods Magikarp and Lord Helix. But that's it, guys. Jokes aside, that's the tier list. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree with me or not in the comment section. This was pretty hard to do because the move pools for certain Pokemon really skewed the power rankings here, in my opinion. If you didn't have to use rental Pokemon and you could select the moves on the Pokemon themselves, then this would look very, very different in my opinion. But because certain Pokemon are locked into awful moves, it just makes them so much worse than other Pokemon. So there you have it. I'm gonna do one more thing where I select the 6 Pokemon that I would bring. I think Hitmonlee is something I definitely want to bring, right? So let's grab Hitmonlee. Highest physical attacker, right? Highest special attacker in Starmie is pretty solid. I can also switch into psychic moves for Hitmonlee. It's a fantastic pivot. And then I need something to resist flying as well. Probably Rhydon if I had to guess. Yeah, Rhydon's solid. I need a grass type that can swap into water and grass type moves. So that's probably going to be Exeggutor. There you go. I'm going to add a fire type here just for some diversity. I'm going to go for Magmar, actually. Magmar is solid. It's not ×4 to Rock Slide. And then the last Pokemon, you could do something that's just all around consistent and really good move pool. I think Dragonair's solid. I think those are the 6 Pokemon that I would bring, honestly. But anyway, guys, that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching the video all the way to the end. I definitely recommend you subscribe. I do a lot of Pokemon content. For anything that's trending Pokemon, like Pokemon Stadium. I also do VGC for Scarlet and Violet, and I do Pokemon Unite. You know, Lapras is coming to Unite, so that's really cool. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe and like. Anyways, see you guys on the next video. Peace.